CSA All-Star Break podcast. We're going through all of the divisions, and we're going to stay with Tom Mariam with the National League East. And Tom, all of a sudden, there's a ball club out of Miami that is starting to make a lot of noise.
The Marlins. Now, if you ask any baseball fan to name five Marlins and anybody to stand on the street next to the Marlins and pick three of them out and correctly identify them, you have superhuman powers because it is the most anonymous team in baseball. But this is a real team. Go back to last June, not this June, but last June. They were one of the top teams in baseball over the last 4 months of the season. They made a nice run. They weren't quite in playoff contention because they had started so miserably, but they ended somebody else's season that I know quite well on the last day of the season, a New York team that plays in the National League.
They do
And
that
this year,
every year.
that
Oh seven,
yeah,
oh eight last
that
year.
that is true. That goes back quite a while. But in all seriousness, the Marlins have been playing very, very well over the last 6 weeks or so. They have one of the best records and Major League. I think they have the best record, actually, if you go back over a month, depending on what your starting point is. They're only 4 games out. They did have a tough weekend against the Guardians. They lost all three, but they've been on a big winning streak until then. But they have to climb past two teams. The Braves, who had an enormous lead in early May, suddenly have just a 2-game lead over the Phillies. No question that the Phillies turned around with a managerial change from Rob Thompson to Don Mattingly. I'm not going to say it's all Mattingly that did it, and some of that might just be timing. And when Rob Thompson took over for Joe Girardi back in 22, they went on a run all the way to the World Series. But the Phillies are clearly, I think, the class of that division. Look at the power. Kyle Schwarber, 33 home runs there at the All-Star break. And I would say that if you're looking at Kalshi or one of those, he's probably the name to put your money on for the home run derby. Bryce Harper, who is trying to show he's elite, unlike what his general manager or team president said about him during the offseason. I expect a better second half out of Trey Turner. They've gotten pretty good years so far out of some of their other players. And
Yeah, Bryson Stott and Marsh. Marsh has
yeah,
been he's hitting over 300.
and look at their starting pitching. It is
Oh,
top quality. Christopher Sanchez is going to start the All-Star game. If it weren't for Mizorowski, he would be the leading contender for Cy Young. He had that enormous scoreless streak of 46 innings up to a couple of weeks ago. Zach Wheeler has been tremendous for them again. Jesus Luzardo, also a pick for the All-Star game, is picking up again the way he did last year. A bit of a slow start for the team. They still have Aaron Nola, but he's on the back end of the starting rotation. Duran in the bullpen gives them a tremendous closer. I
if
think
they
knowing
can
them
get to Duran, that's the big problem. Their middle relievers are poo poo.
they have been, and I think that's what you're going to see at the trade deadline. Dave Dombrowski has never been one to be quiet at the trading deadline, and I expect that he will be making some noise here for the Phillies to try to fill up those holes in the bullpen. And something they've addressed almost every year has been the bullpen. But I do think the Phillies will overtake the Braves. The Braves are running on fumes right now. They've had a lot of injuries. They were tremendous for the first 6 weeks or so, down many of their starting pitchers. Since Acuna went down, though, I think the team has fallen. They're not getting the type of year that they should out of Austin Riley. They are getting it out of Matt Olson. They have the Profar suspension, which hurts them certainly. They're a team that is good, and I think they will make the playoffs, but I think they're going to be in a tough race to make it. I do think the Phillies will overtake them, and I don't think the Marlins. I do think the Marlins might overtake them too. The other interesting team, Dave, is in your backyard, and that's the Nationals.
Yeah, it's another club where suspect pitching is hurting them. They have a great lineup. I think they're leading the majors in runs scored.
If they played those 7 inning games we had during the pandemic, they would have swept the Yankees this weekend.
Yeah,
But they
yeah,
lost all 3 games from the 8th inning on,
because
and
of the bullpen
the
was just
bullpen is horrible. Their starting pitching's been okay. Their offense is good. In
very
terms of
good.
leading the league, they've gotten the two guys that they got back for Juan Soto and Abrams and Wood have been excellent players for them. And they've had Luis Garcia at first base, is one of the leaders in RBIs in the National League. So they've been a surprise offensively. Their Doogie Howser manager seems to be doing okay. At
He's
the 33. Blake
he's a bit of a
Carroll.
gambler. He's yeah. He's like baseball's Ron Rivera.
Yeah.
Definitely, he's thrown away the book.
And so if they can get bullpen help, and this is something we're probably saying about every team, I'm sure Adam and David will be saying the same when we get to their divisions as they did earlier. I think that could help them. The one team I think you don't have to worry about in the second half of the year is the New York Mets.
They couldn't beat Syracuse at this point.
They probably could only because it's Mets players at Syracuse, but
Yeah.
they are they've been awful, as we know. They changed managers, unlike the Phillies or even the Red Sox to a certain degree. It hasn't made a difference. They're 6-10 since the managerial change, about the same percentage as they were under Carlos Mendoza. They have an awful roster. It's put together very poorly, and when you add in some injuries to that, it's just a bunch of misfits on that team. It'll be interesting at the trading deadline as to how much they strip away the current roster. One player that they were counting on at the beginning of the year, got from the White Sox, your team, David, Luis Robert Jr., and he lived up to his reputation by getting hurt in April. He hasn't played since, but he went on a rehab assignment this week. So we might be seeing him up at Citi Field before long, but
Where
the
do they
best thing
put
in
him?
this season has been the young outfielders.
Yeah, where do you
Now
put
we know about Soto. That's not a surprise. Moving him to left field from right field definitely improved the defense. But AJ Ewing, who came up in May, and Carson Bench, who made the team out of spring training, those have been the bright spots for the Mets this year. I don't know what they would do with Robert, other than Ewing can play second, but then Marcus Semien also started a rehab assignment. Another one of their wonderful acquisitions. The Mets started the season with 4 former American League All-Star shortstops in their infield. Francisco Lindor, who is their shortstop, Bo Bichette, whom they moved to third, Marcus Semien, whom they moved to second, and then Jorge Polanco using his one at bat of major league experience at first base. But Polanco's been hurt. He came back this week, but only as a DH. And the Mets are going to have to sort that out. But the big mistake would be giving a lot of at bats to these players and not taking advantage of the young players they have. I think they need to give Ronnie Mauricio a full look the rest of the season and determine if there's a future for him on that team or not. And also in the pitching staff, I would say Freddie Peralta is a good bet to get traded somewhere. He's been a disappointment for the Mets. He's a veteran pitcher. I've heard the Cubs name come up, David, partly because he pitched for Craig Counsell and also pitched in the National League Central for a long time. So that's certainly a possibility. I know the Mets want to focus on Nolan McLean and Christian Scott on their starting rotation. Zach Thornton's come up and pitched a couple of games. They might as well look at the young guys there. And then the bullpen is an interesting question. Luke Weaver has been tremendous. And the question for the Mets is, do you want to get rid of somebody who actually has been very good or try to cash him in?
Yeah,
Devin
really
Williams
too.
Today's game, they had a 2-run lead in the ninth against the Red Sox, and Devin was acting as if he was pitching to Pete Alonso in the National League Wild Card Series.
Yeah, well, if Lindor could, what the heck has happened to Lindor's fielding? I mean, he makes that play, it's game over, 2-0 shutout.
I think he's shot defensively. You can see that the last year or so. Forget the injuries. I mean, they probably have a little effect on him, but I think he's aged out. I used to be in Cleveland a lot. In his last year or two with the then Indians, I was hearing a lot of rumbles that people weren't too happy with him either. I think he's a player they may need to move around somewhere else, but again, it's clogged up with other former shortstops. Bo Bichette's played the majority of the season at short because Lindor missed almost the entire first half with his own calf injury. They could move him back there. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't Ozzie Smith either.
Yeah, and I think this is an excuse for them to really give Mauricio a good look and maybe just use Lindor as the DH for the rest of the year. Possibility, but the Mets won't have to worry about the postseason. That's for sure. You say Phillies, Braves. Do you see the Marlins making the playoffs?
I think it'll be the Phillies winning the division, the Braves finishing second, the Marlins third, and I think that'll be tight between the Braves and the Marlins. The Nationals, if they can get some more pitching, I think they'll be up there, and then it's a long New York pothole back to where the Mets are.